that have made an appearance in the server, there's a chance that this may spread out a little, or just kind of maybe single file out or what have you. These drivers will have, I believe, one faster pair to play around with here, but 80 laps is a decently long time. You might see some single file running for quite some time. I expect multiple pit stops because of the fact that only 65% fuel on board these race cars. Normally, on a good day with 100% fuel, I'd only expect maybe 40 some laps, maybe even less than that. So I expect a few pit stops to happen. So some things, some factors might spread the field out here during this race.
For sure. You can see Emily Howe currently putting in her qualifying effort at the moment. You can see a bit of a throwback to the EA Sports 500. I remember those days. That was back, about 2002, 2003. She's obviously changed a bit of the actual logo. Now it's EA Howe, so very cool logo on the front end of her car.
Yeah, and Emily's showing the speed that she's consistently shown in qualifying this season, putting down the fastest time at the moment at a 53.638. We've seen quite a few times that she, along with Cass Silliman, they've had very, very fast race cars, both in qualifying trim and in race trim. Harry Wills has had fast race cars week by week, but don't currently see him in the server at the moment, so I'll have to keep an eye on that one. But yeah, right now it's Howe, Zier, Kulaga, Judith Cooper, Steven Martinez, and Travis Kepler who have all put times down. But Austin, you might even see drivers not even qualify here because track position doesn't really matter a whole lot, and with the shorter field, it's going to matter even less.
No, it certainly doesn't. I can count on my hand the amount of times we haven't qualified for a super speedway race and the amount of times we have, and in every single one of those times there is not a single thing to say I finished here because I started here. It's always completely random, and it's really easy to go from the back of the pack to the front of the pack, and you can do that just a short couple of laps, especially on these super speedway races. And with the field only 20 cars at a maximum, it's not going to be too hard to cut your way up through it, especially with these guys. They've been pretty timid here at the super speedway races. It's usually, if you have a run, I won't block you, I'll tuck in behind you, especially for the first maybe 3/4 of a race. It's pretty tongue-in-cheek in terms of actual blocking people.
Yeah, and at Talladega anyway, there's a lot more wiggle room as far as changing lanes, so you can be a little more creative with how you attack and try to make passes. One thing I've noticed in these next-gen race cars, though, you do need to try to maintain 1 to maybe 2 seconds, but really more like 1 second up to the group in front of you. They do suck up decently, but it's not. It's not like the 1987 cars where you can just kind of separate and just kind of drive up through the field whenever you feel like. You do have to make sure you stay within the lead pack. You see right here, I believe, is that Harry Wills on screen, or is that one of the other drivers that looks like his? That's the 46, so that's that's Dean Timms. Yeah, but what he's doing right now is what is kind of standard procedure here on lap 1 of your qualifying effort at Talladega, and that's riding right up at the top of the track, which I typically do when I qualify here. You just try to make the lap as long as possible, get some RPMs up into the engine, and then you'll come down low here, and you'll possibly cut the track or just ride the low line here to start your green flag lap, and then next you will keep the car all the way down on the bottom and run the shortest route possible because you don't have any momentum and you don't have any drafting help, so the shortest lap around this place possible is usually what will be fastest.
Well, I was kind of surprised there too, coming off of turn 4. Usually you stay high like that, and then you cut down at the middle of the tri-oval if you're at Daytona. Here the start-finish line is further, like you mentioned at the top of the broadcast, Kenny, further out than just the end of the tri-oval. I would anticipate you'd stay all the way up at the top through the tri-oval and then cut down after that, kind of just save all that momentum to make sure you have it on that first lap. But odds are, I'm sure, these drivers have kind of played with that a bunch in practice, especially making their sets. It is not easy to turn out these sets at the rate that they do each and every week. So to come here with equipment this fast is truly an understatement.
Yeah, and that's a good point with this being open setup. Some of these, qualifying here, I think will come down more to what kind of setups are underneath these drivers as opposed to how they're driving. Because, I mean, obviously, if you run the high line all the way around, both laps, it's obviously going to be slow. But if you generally get it right, you run high one lap, low the next lap, it's really going to come down to just keeping the wheel nice and smooth, not hitting the apron and scrubbing off any type of speed, and the rest will come down to setup. And it'll be interesting to see if we actually do find any kind of handling differences between the cars in the race when we get to drivers racing in packs and whatnot, and a little bit of tire wear. Typically, don't see a whole lot of tire wear with the cars at Talladega. So I'm not so sure it'll come into play, but we'll see how trimmed out these cars are. See who's best at creating runs, see who's best at pushing, things like that. So that I do expect to see some differences. But Talladega is one of those great equalizing tracks where you don't have to necessarily have the best setup underneath you, and you can still be pretty competitive.
Oh yeah, for sure. This car is really just a true equalizer as well. There's a lot less you can do in terms of actual setups for the car, and even so little you could do on pit road compared to the old Generation 6 car. There no longer is track bar you can take into and out of the car. It's pretty much just wheel air, tire air pressure at this point. So it's going to be very interesting to see who is, like you mentioned, good at the super speedway plate racing. We saw a little bit of that out of Emily Howe, Lilacs here. They're really good at pushing cars, even leading themselves. So definitely some people that, and these drivers know that. They know who is good to push you, who is good to a good driver to follow, and you just get right with those people, and you're going to go with them all the way to the front.
Yeah, for certain. And we have seen there's a kind of a few groups of drivers who can potentially work together. You have Howe and Zier and Cooper up towards the front. Also have Dean Timms and Harry Wills, if Harry Wills is indeed going to be racing, but Dean Timms and Harry Wills, I'd expect them to work together. Justin Delano and Jason Ahrensberg can potentially work together, and they'll be starting near the back. Looks like they're not going to put down a qualifying time, so I expect them to kind of hang out near the back and just kind of feel out how the field's going to act. But looks like qualifying is over, and we are about ready to get this one started.
That's for sure. Going to go through your starting order powered by SIM3D and go for the gap. Emily Howell lines up on pole. Starting to the outside in row number 1 is Lilac Zier. Eric Gulaga lines up in 3rd, followed by Judith Cooper in 4th. Mark Redford is going to start 5th, followed by Stephen Martinez, who lines up in the 6th position. Travis Kepler starts in 7th, and to his outside is Cass Silliman. TJ Hanley lines up in 9th, with Matthew Plaisance in 10th.
Dean Timms is 11th, and John Cooper is 12th. Jason Ahrensberg is 13th, with Braden Mailing in 14th, and Justin Delano is 15th, with Harry Wills in 16th. If he grids up here, and appears he's not here at the moment, but he would be the 16th and final car.
Thank you, Kenny. And Kenny, years ago, I always hear every time we come to Talladega, Mike Joy always mentions on the broadcast, instead of being like Daytona, Bill France Sr., the founding father of NASCAR, realized it was really hard to sell the seats on the two ends of the tri-oval, especially going into turn 1. So he went ahead and moved the start-finish line down there, because at Daytona, the seats always sold out. The first were the ones right by the start-finish line. So naturally, he moved the start-finish line to where it was really hard to sell seats. And I'm not sure if it worked out for him, but Talladega has obviously stayed in business all these years. So he must have hit that nail right on the head.
Yeah, I mean, the start-finish line location here at Talladega is always a talking point, because I'm not sure of the exact statistics, but there's been multiple times when a driver has been leading at where the start-finish line would be at like Talladega, and they're not leading at the checkered flag where it actually matters, where the true location of the start-finish line is. And it's just kind of a different dynamic that makes this track a little bit different. from Daytona, but like what we've been saying since the start of this broadcast is this track really is quite different from Daytona. And in principle, the way you race this track is pretty, pretty similar to Daytona. It's really, flat out pack racing, drafting, things like that. But what each of these tracks allows you to do behind the wheel, as far as making moves and kind of the conditions you have to deal with bumps and lanes and things like that, these tracks are very, very different.
For sure. I'm so glad you mentioned that as well. I mean, at Talladega, obviously, it's a lot wider than Daytona. 3 wide at Daytona is extremely sketchy, but 3 wide at Talladega, that's just par for the course. 4 wide at Talladega, getting a little bit sketchy. You can go 5 wide, would not recommend it. Extremely sketchy to go 5 wide here. But we've seen it happen time and time again, and you're absolutely right with saying that sometimes a leader that normally would have won the race at Daytona by leading in the middle of the tri-oval, you get about a football field down the road, and it's a different leader 9 times out of 10. I can't tell you how many times that has happened. Michael Waltrip, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Clint Boyer beat out his teammate, I think Jeff Burton one year. I can remember Kevin Harvick beating out Jamie McMurray here in about 2009 or 10 for a win. That was an extremely close race, and it's just what can happen when you just move that start-finish line a little bit further down the front stretch. And when these cars are going at full sound, Kenny, they go about 1 football field every single second. So it's incredible just how fast these drivers have to cope with the speed and the changing conditions out there on track. And you talk about the bumps. The bumps are something in and of themselves.
Yeah, for certain. One thing I'm also trying to keep my eye on here is I expect us to have at least 1 green flag pit stop with the field size being pretty small. I expect these drivers to kind of space out a little bit, and if we get the green flag pit stop, I really want to keep an eye on how many laps these drivers are able to go on a tank of fuel. The strategy may play into things. You really have to hit your marks on green flag pit stops. But Austin, pace car's coming in, and we're ready to get this one going.
Certainly right. The iRacing pace car is going to make the hard left turn down pit road, is going to give command of the field over to pole sitter Emily Howe. She's going to start the race whenever she would like to. She has a long range here of when she wants to start the race. You can see that normally they would have already passed the start-finish line. The starter throws the green flag in the air. They're going to rocket down towards turn number 1. Still pretty even thus far. I'm really interested to see who everyone is going to work with as this race starts to play out.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on the drivers near the back. You'll already see some stragglers dropping off of the main group here. As one of the drivers in the back, especially if you're last in line, you really don't want to get too far behind early on, or else you could find yourself losing the group. But so far, Justin Delano in 15th place, that final car doing an all right job. He should be able to just kind of hang here, but we go into turn 3 and 4 for the first time. Lilac Zier is leading, and she has some prismatic drivers in behind her, and they're 2x2 beyond. So these drivers are pretty packed together as we come down to finish lap number 1, and there's a lane change for Emily Howe. She's obviously looking for that lead right away.
Yeah, looking to hunt for that lead, or at least follow her prismatic teammate. They're going to cross the start-finish line. Lilac Zier going to lead lap number 1. So we've already seen 1 lead change so far. Obviously, Emily Howe didn't lead a lap, so you don't count it as a lead change. But as far as I'm concerned, that's 1 lead change. And look at how spread out these drivers are already, Kenny. You've got a lot of drivers down on the low lane, right against that double yellow line, and a lot of drivers up near the top. And it's one thing we're going to talk about right now. It is enforced in this league as well, as in most of iRacing sometimes, that double yellow line on the inside of the track. You can't make any moves for position below that line.
Yeah, and we've seen that come into play at the ends of a lot of races, and yeah, hopefully that doesn't come into play and really kind of botch any kind of good finish in this one. And so there was actually some decent contact midway through the pack that has actually made a few drivers kind of lose the group. Harry Wills was involved in a little bit of contact. He got hit in the left rear, and Wills did make it obviously into the race server on time, so he just started from the back and has charged his way to the front. One thing I want to bring up too, and you see Harry Wills doing it right here, is the middle lane at Talladega is very tempting here, especially if the highline drivers decide to go way up the track and not really pinch off the drivers on the bottom. Makes that middle lane look so open and so inviting. So a lot of times you will see drivers, especially near the end of the race, slip into that middle groove and try to make something happen.
That's right. No longer is it like Daytona where you call that middle line the sucker hole. It's very advantageous to get in that middle line, especially like you said, if those leaders don't come all the way down the track and pinch off that lower line. One thing we saw at Daytona earlier in the season, Atlanta as well as in the real life Atlanta. Obviously, the iRacing one a little bit different, still the old configuration of the track, but these cars would sometimes get just a little bit bogged down in the middle of the corners on the bottom lane, so it was a lot better to be up on the high side. You were able to keep that momentum up, and there was less getting out of the throttle because you would get such a big draft. You'd catch the car in front of you. It's just a lot easier to be on that high side at Daytona. You keep the momentum, you keep passing cars, especially as that low line checks up. Obviously, this being an open setup league, these drivers found those kinks in the real setup, and they fixed those for theirs. But at Talladega, it being a larger track, these drivers not having to turn the wheel as much, leaves them a lot more unwound. You keep that momentum up all over, and right now it seems like the extra feet you're adding to the lap by being on the high side, not really equal to being on the low side. Low side looks pretty speedy right now.
No, and generally in iRacing, it seems like the low side generally does prevail. However, I did notice, in my experience driving these next-gen cars, that it was kind of, I guess, easier to stay organized on top, whereas on the bottom, there's a few more checkups, and drivers really have to be more willing to kind of push and get really organized on the bottom and work at it. But once they establish that organization on the bottom is going to be the fastest. One thing to note as well about these next-gen cars is there is definitely side drafting, but it's not as bad as what the last build of the Gen 6 cars was. I mean, it was nearly impossible to pull out, especially on your own or with only a couple drivers with you to make passes. But these next-gen cars, you can make some progress. It's still difficult. There's still some side drafting. You still need some help, but it's not dang near impossible like it was late in last season. But you do see drivers kind of making a defined low line and kind of charging ahead. It seems like the first battle side by side is just outside the top 5.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, leading that low line right now is Eric Kulak. I've been waiting for him to have a really breakout race where he just dominates the entire thing. Obviously, hasn't happened yet, but he's super consistent and extremely fast on the roadside. Just behind him is Mark Redford. Obviously, he was so fast at Pocono, qualifying on the pole, just doing a really good job at Pocono. Obviously, you can only do so well when it's practically 3 or 4 a.m. in your time zone for these races. So obviously just had barely a slip up there. And with these cars, it's so hard to save them, even if you make just the tiniest of mistakes. Back behind him is Matthew Plaisance, another driver extremely fast on the road side of things in those Grand Touring cars.
Yeah, and Daytona and Talladega is not necessarily a physical game, but it's really a mental game, because you get on, if we could get on board with one of these drivers who's kind of in the middle of the field, you will see how limited visibility is, and you're basically just following the driver in front. And thanks, Davey Christie, for giving us these angles. You're really just following the driver in front, and things happen so fast at Daytona and Talladega that reaction time is everything. You have to be willing to push. You have to be willing to get pushed and be put into uncomfortable positions. And Harry Will's making some more moves on the top side. He's trying to get towards the front, but it really is a mental game. Just thinking about how you want to position your car, because we've seen any kind of strategy work or not work at tracks like this, where drivers will try to stay towards the back and come to the front at the end, or they want to lead every single lap, and that can all get mixed up based on green flag pit stops, as you see some really hard pushing there from Emily Howe on the top line. But yeah, there's a lot more going on than maybe what is maybe shown just on television. These drivers are working harder than it may look.
Yeah, really busy with the hands as we see Mark Redford going for the lead here into turn one. That's John D. Cooper on pit road. I believe his race car is really giving him some handling concerns going into turns number one and two. That time in the middle, there was a huge checkup for him. He was forced to go extremely slow. You can see he's got a lot of damage on the left-hand side of the car. Just overshot the entrance of pit road. We're too wide though for the lead. Mark Redford currently in front of Harry Wills. He's gone up to the high side. This is the move for the lead that you're seeing right here. This is Mark Redford on the outside. He ditched Eric Kulaga, went up to the high side, got a huge push there from Harry Wills, and then Emily Howe just behind him, and you can see how fanned out they are on the backstretch. We're still a replay. This still isn't live yet. This has been an incredibly tight battle for the lead. Now we're going to be back live in just a couple seconds here. There's still about too wide for the lead. Emily Howe is your current leader. This is the second change of the lead. This is Emily Howe fighting back on the low side, being pushed right now by Cass Silliman.
Yeah, and I've noticed that these drivers are really kind of going back and forth already. I'm seeing a lot of kind of weaving about. Not sure if there's some handling issues. Turbulent air can be a factor in that as well. Yeah, that's one thing. That's about the most dangerous thing at Daytona and Talladega is when the drivers start to move back and forth. But yeah, it's been pretty competitive so far.
Well, Kenny, especially with these cars, the Generation 6 Cup cars were rounded on the front end, and on the rear end, they were almost flat, like practically completely flat. These next generation Cup cars, they're rounded on the front side and the rear end of the car, so it's a lot harder to push someone and make sure they're exactly square with you. We apologize currently for the technical difficulties. We hope to get those sorted out in just a couple quick seconds here. For the moment, it's still Emily Howe out front, followed by Cass Silliman, Lilac Sear, and Judith Cooper. Just behind them, TJ Handley has made a challenge here for the top 5 spot. You can see the live leaderboard on your screen right there on the left side. Of course, all the intervals, we are back live. Apologies for the difficulties there, the technical ones, but we are back live. This is the current battle for the lead right here. Again, just kind of pushing, teammate pushing, and the real important thing too, Kenny, is these drivers were not in the lead just a couple short laps ago. They worked their way up to the lead, obviously in team fashion, and they just kind of challenged. And that's very reminiscent of what Dale Earnhardt would often do at these races. He would go back to the back of the pack and then make his way through just to see what it was like, see how good a car he had.
Yeah, and it's a prismatic sweep 1, 2, 3, 4 right now, and really that's going to make it difficult for the entire field to make much progress if these 4 drivers decide to stay together and just kind of hang there on the bottom. It's won't be impossible for the field to get by them, but it's going to make it difficult. The drivers will have to really focus on trying to get organized and what will probably have to be the top line because these drivers are kind of sticking to the bottom at the moment. But if any of the prismatic drivers decide to start playing defense or blocking, that's going to make it even more difficult. But you do see the 66 car of Eric Kulaga trying to make some progress up in the top side, and he hasn't really shown his hand yet and gone up front quite yet, but making some good progress right now with a push from Harry Wills on the top side. But it's nice to see that there's been like kind of a rotation of drivers coming up towards the front, going back towards the back, and like you said, Austin, in my opinion, it's good to be in the draft early on to kind of find out what you have, how kind of comfortable your car is, and how comfortable you are at racing, because that's one disadvantage of starting in the back and racing back there is if you just kind of throw yourself into the chaos at the very end, you might just not have that comfort level that you need to make those risky moves.
Well, yeah, especially because you don't know how your car is going to react to being in the turbulent air. Jeff Gordon tell you, all the race car drivers, even you and I can attest to this. Your car handles the best when you're out front in clean air. When there's no one else ahead of you, you get to dictate the line and how everything goes, because up there is no turbulent air to be had. You're the leader. You create that turbulent air for all the drivers behind you. So up there, your car is going to feel like $1 million no matter what. You get put back in the pack. You might realize it's not as trimmed out as you want it to be, or it's just really hard to get through these corners without all that air going to the front end of your car, especially because when you used to enter the corner of the Generation 6 Cup cars, Kenny, you get really tight upon entering. You'd have to crank an extra like 30 to 15 degrees of steering into the car just to make sure you could hug that yellow line. I can't attest to it in these Cup cars, Kenny, so I'll pass it on to you. Do you still get that tight entering the corner?
Yeah, what really affects these cars, and it's not going to be so much at a track like this, but what affects the handling a lot here is especially when a driver in front of you cuts right across your nose and puts kind of a wake across your nose. That really gives you an aero push, an aero tight sensation. If you're kind of just riding behind somebody, you do have an aero push, but it's not nearly as bad. What really affects it is when a driver kind of cuts across your nose going into a corner, or there's kind of like a lane change right in front of you mid-corner. Things like that when your drivers are bumper to bumper, that will really cause an aero tight sensation.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, it's not as bad in these cars as it was in the older generation 6 Cup cars. Of note as well, you can see it on the left-hand portion of your screen. John Cooper in the number 18 Ford, he is out of the race after handling issues and damaging the left-hand side of his car. He had to go down pit road, make that unscheduled pit stop, and down there obviously making that spin in the infield that kind of set him back, and it's really hard to get your laps back and catch back up to the field on a track like this, so obviously having some difficulties. So unfortunately John Cooper is out of the race. Real quickly though, I'd like to thank our sponsors for today's race as well as the entire season. SIM3D, they're a UK-based business specializing in high-end bespoke sim racing hardware. You can check them out at sim3d.co.uk. And Go for the Gap, they're a brand of Cami Sturch. She's a young, whoa, one car hard in the wall. Matthew Plaisance getting spun off the nose of another car. He spins back down into the infield. No caution yet because he's off the racing surface, but that is almost certainly a day done for that car. If there is no caution, he can't catch back up to the rest of the field. Another couple cars, though, having to slow down for that incident, looking like Redford, Delano, Melling, Aaronsburg, and Plaisance, obviously. So looking at some of those cars now, not too much damage on the front ends of those machines.
Yeah, at least Plaisance wrecked right by pit lane and will be able to come in, take his fast repair, come back out. He will eventually go one lap down, but you know, as soon as we have one caution, he'll be able to get back out there and most likely get the free pass. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. He did take his fast repair. Also is taking 4 fresh tires, so he will come out and he will definitely go a lap down immediately. He is just now getting towards pit exit as the drivers come through the tri-oval here. You'll probably see the drivers. There he is right there coming out of the pit lane, and looks like he won't be able to latch onto the draft either. So hopefully for him, he gets that caution he needs before he goes a second lap down, because it looks like he's not going to have much help.
Yeah, for sure. No help indeed for him. So he's really going to have to hope and pray that we get a caution. Mark Redford, another car down on pit road. You can see him. That's his white and green number 77's Toyota Camry there, obviously getting service. So I don't know if this is a fast repair. I would assume he requires a fast repair, at least thinks he does, because otherwise there's no reason to pit. Another car spinning out in the middle of turns 3 and 4. Not quite sure who that is.
Might be
Justin. Oh, yeah, Travis Kepler. Thank you, Kenny.
Yeah, not sure what happened to him in the middle of 3 and 4. Oh, it looks like he tried to get down in line entering turn 3 and really tried to squeeze in between 2 drivers, and Cass Silliman was not having any of it and turned him into turn 3. Looks like there was kind of an accordion effect, though. There was really a hard checkup there, and you see right there, yeah, he tried to get in line and then kind of, I bet he had to slam on his brakes to avoid hitting the driver in front of him, and then he got ran into the back of. But a really good save actually by the 27 car to keep it going, not hit any other drivers or the wall. He can continue, but he has lost the draft.
Yeah, this is another replay of that, and Kenny hit the nail right on the head. Definitely going to have to check up because of the overspeed when he's trying to slow down to get in line and tuck in behind the draft as they enter the corner. Currently in the lead, it is Eric Kulaga. Harry Wills is in second place, so right now catching up to Mark Redford down the front straightaway, so we'll see what Mark can do to kind of latch on to the back of this field. Currently, Travis Kepler has scored 1 lap down. Matthew Plaisance is 2 laps down. So the next driver to go 1 lap down is the driver just ahead of Eric Kulaga right here, Mark Redford. He's going to try, I think, to let them by on the bottom and hopefully latch on to this. We're going to see how it plays out. There he is, just coming into the frame now. Kulaga goes low. Harry Wills goes with him. Then you got the obviously the teammates of Howe and Silliman just behind those 2 drivers. So it looks like everything's going to be pretty orderly here. Whoa, Redford just barely able to slant line, gets in front of TJ Handley. Kenny, I think there was some contact there between those 2 cars.
Yeah, I think there was. There's definitely some damage in the back end of Redford's car. He tried to slip down in line and Yeah, that was. He obviously doesn't want to lose the draft and go a second lap down, and he will maintain the free pass position. One thing of note, Matthew Plaisance went back down pit road and into his stall. He is 2 laps down, and he is exiting. He's down the backstretch actually right now, and so the leaders will catch him and possibly lap him for a third time here in the next lap or two. Also, Travis Kepler, who we saw spin in 3 and 4, decided to not continue. He has disconnected, so he will be out of the race, and he will probably end up in 15th position. But I want to go back to Eric Kulaga because while you were kind of giving the sponsor plug early, Austin, Kulaga and Wills made a really nice, aggressive move using the top line momentum to pass the Prismatic drivers and get to the lead. So good work by those two drivers. Kulaga in first and Wills has settled into second. Good run for them to get up and leapfrog those other drivers up into the front. And so far, there hasn't been any charge mounted by any other drivers since. It's pretty much been just single file.
Yeah, thank you, Kenny. Just to get back to thanking our sponsors, Go for the Gap. They're a brand of British artist named Cami Sturch. She creates some incredible motorsport-themed prints over on her Etsy page. That is, again, called Go for the Gap. Give that a goog. You'll find the Etsy page right away. Lots of cool stuff on there. Definitely recommend checking that out.
These drivers are pretty much single file still, and we're on lap 23 now. And I am not exactly sure how long these drivers will be able to go on a 65% fuel load, but I don't expect it to be much longer than what we've already gone now. So expect at any moment these drivers could come down pit road, and Austin, pit road is its own challenge under green flag pit stops here or at Talladega or at Daytona. You want to make sure you're coming down pit lane with some friends, but you got to make sure you don't run those friends over or get run over from behind. It's kind of a dance or a choreography in order to make that make everything work out and also come out together as well. You can't have mistakes during your pit stop either. You got to make sure you all come out together as a group so you can get back in line and get back in the draft.
Yeah, for sure. Even coming down onto pit road, just braking alone can be a challenge, Kenny, because you've talked about it several times with a mutual friend of ours, J.R. Shepard, that sometimes when you go to decelerate these cars, they brake really good from about 200 to 50 mile an hour, and then after maybe 50 mile an hour, you start to lock up those tires a lot easier slowing down to enter your pit box. So it's kind of weird. The brakes handle a little bit differently. Obviously, the brakes on these next-gen Cup cars a lot larger in diameter, which means the stopping force is a lot greater than the old Generation 6 Cup cars. So it's a new thing to get used to in general. And we only go to these super speedway races 4 times a year. So to have to get used to that is certainly new. You see Eric Kulaga slowing down to go down pit road. We'll see if he has any friends behind him. You can see Harry Wills, Emily Howe, Cass Silliman, all staying out on track. So hopefully these drivers go to pit a little longer. Kenny, I did do some math on my phone here, quick math. 65% of 40 laps is about 26. So that's about as long as you can go, I believe, on a tank of fuel.
And it makes perfect sense that the Vulture Motorsports teammate of Kulaga, Steven Martinez, is going to make his way down pit road. Also, Dean Timms is coming down pit road with Jason Ahrensberg and Justin Delano. Those two are teammates. They were towards the back end of the field, though, so they will not, most likely not find themselves in with the rest of the leaders. But Martinez and Kulaga have exited the pit lane. They're kind of together. They'll be able to hook up as they come down, get around turn 1 and 2 and come back down the back stretch. But there you go. You see Harry Wills coming down pit road, and I don't think he had any help at all. So yeah, no help at all for him. It looks like, oh, TJ Hanley has come down. So there is 2 drivers at least, and this will be a new thing for us, Austin. With the field being as short as it is, you might have to rely on maybe just 1 or 2 drivers coming down with you, as opposed to normally like an NIS, you expect 10 drivers or so to come down at once.
Yeah, I will say though, you kind of cop out. Larry McReynolds always mentioned it on the broadcast too, especially for the 500, the Daytona duels, even the Budweiser shootout when it used to be on the high banks of Daytona. You kind of want only about 5 to 7 cars to go down with you. You get any more than 10 and it's just 2 drivers, too hectic, slowing down for pit road, all those cars going down there and then having to get situated in their pit boxes and then coming out. So I feel like the group size you want is about between 5 to 7 cars. That really looks like what all the prismatic drivers have going on. I will say, though, too, Dean Timms, Justin Delano, and Jason Ahrensberg, those 3 drivers came down together, and you do want strength in numbers, but obviously there is kind of a cap, as just mentioned.
Well, at least if you have extra drivers come down with you, there's always a chance and most likely that a few of those drivers will kind of straggle off the group by either making mistakes or for whatever reason. So it's good to have extra friends as long as you don't run each other over, to be able to ensure that you have a decent sized group. But you saw the prismatic drivers all come down together, but Braden Mailing has leapfrogged them, but I think we'll see where he comes out at, because he's actually the leader of this group, but I'm not sure he'll be the leader of the race, so I'll have to keep an eye on that. But Silliman is leading the prismatic group as we kind of cycle out. That I believe that will be the last of the lead lap drivers to make a pit stop. And yeah, I think Mailing's going to end up being tail end of the lead lap here.
I think you're right there, Kenny. And obviously, I do agree with the approach you mentioned. The more cars you have, the more opportunity you have for some cars to get down there faster, so it's more efficient. That definitely the shotgun mentality approach to doing these super speedway races, especially when you go down to pit. So currently, though, Cass Silliman is your leader, followed by Emily Howe, Lilac Sierra, and Judith Cooper. So those prismatic teammates putting on quite the show right now, very reminiscent of when Stuart Haas Racing dominated the fall race at Talladega in about 2018. Very hard for anyone else to get around them. You can see that's the number 19 car, Braden Mailing. That's the car that you just mentioned, Kenny.
Yeah, and I noticed Harry Wills came back down pit road. It was kind of weird. He made his pit stop, came back around, and immediately went to the apron in turn 3 and then pitted a second time. My guess was that maybe he had some sort of penalty like speeding or something, but he never really he never used the track all the way around to at least kind of make his his second in lap as fast as possible. So that was kind of odd. He's 1 lap down and he's going to be pretty much by himself. So he will eventually go a second lap down if we stay green here. And now the lead group is pretty spread out. Looks like Dean Timms is trying to catch up to Ahrensberg and Delano. That's near the back portion of the top 10. Redford is paired up with Plaisance, who's laps down. Then you got Hanley, Kulaga, and Martinez in a little group with each other. Mailing, who you mentioned, he just went down a lap. He is behind the prismatic drivers, who have all grouped together and are pretty far away from the field right now, about 3-ish seconds ahead of the next driver, Martinez.
Yeah, they're putting on an absolute clinic in terms of what you can do when you have teammates that you know and you trust out there on the track, because you really do have to trust the drivers around you, especially when you go pack racing like this, because if any of them make some sort of unexpected move, it can catch you out, and sometimes it's going to end in a large wreck. You mentioned the different packs we have on the track. Mark Redford in that number 77 machine. He looks to be out there racing all on his lonesome. He's about 13 seconds behind this lead pack you see on your screen right here. Then there's another pack behind Mark made up of Justin Delano, Jason Ahrensberg, and Dean Timms. They're about 25 seconds, so around an entire half of a lap behind these leaders, but staying pretty consistently, maybe losing a couple tenths of them every lap just due to how many cars they have. And it might also just be due to the setups in terms of that too.
Yeah, we'll have to monitor the lap times and see if any of these other smaller groups will catch up to the leading group of 4 there. But yeah, I said it earlier in the broadcast that I expected to see at least 1 set of green flag pit stops, and now it's at this point it's looking like we could see more than 1 set of green flag pit stops with how spread out the field is. And looks like Braden Mailing is actually tagged onto the back of the lead group, and that's actually pretty significant because Mailing just went a lap down, and if he can stay tagged onto the back of these leaders, he will pretty much guarantee that he stays in the free pass position for if we do get a caution. Harry Wills, on the other hand, the next car one lap down is completely by himself, and actually in the next few laps will probably go a lap down. You see the leaders coming off of turn 4. Harry Wills just now crossing the start-finish line, so he will go another lap down in the next few laps, and that will make things a little easier for Mailing. But at the rate that these leaders are going, they may even catch up to that group of 3 that you mentioned, Austin: Delano, Ahrensberg, and Timms. Probably not this run, but could happen eventually, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, this is going to be about a 3-stop race if these drivers pit every about 25 to 26 laps. Definitely only looking like a 3-stop or kind of a splash and go there at the end. And if you're in that second group of cars, you know, Martinez, Kulaga, and Handley, you come down pit road, you have your gas time perfectly, and it's just a green flag dash to the end. If you time out the gas perfect, and all the 4 cars in this front pack here, if they don't get the gas perfect, or they maybe go down pit road, get a full tank, get 4 fresh Goodyear tires, you could possibly come back out, leapfrog these drivers, or at least get yourself fighting pretty handily for the lead. But yeah, Kenny, to your point, Harry Wills just ran about a 54 and some change second lap time, and then this lead pack we've had the camera focused on, they keep running lap times in the mid-50s, so they're catching Harry by about 3 seconds or so a lap, sometimes even closer to 4. The third group we mentioned, Delano, Ahrensberg, and Dean Timms, they're running about 51-1, so they're losing about 0.6 of a second every lap, so kind of their only hope at this point is for a caution later in the race, but it's so hard to get those when the entire field is this spread out.
Yeah, for certain, and I do want to bring pit strategy into it a little more, because you know, here tire wear is not going to be that significant, but I would not be surprised if on the last pit stop, if it is a green flag stop, because that will not be a full stint to the end. If these drivers pit every 25 laps, that means they'd pit on lap, well, yeah, that'd be interesting, because if they pitted every 25 laps, they would have to pit on lap 75, so it'd be only 5 laps to go. So if you actually can stretch it just that little bit further than that, do you think that you could make it on 2 stops? I think it'd be a stretch.
I don't think so. Not and be competitive, especially compared to all the rest of these drivers, and you're pretty much going to dig yourself a hole, or at least make a bed you probably wouldn't rather sleep in if you do try to stretch the fuel out to be about, right, you know, the 27 laps or so that you would need. I mean, you look at 80, and then, you know, you divide that by 3, so it's only a 2-stop. You're looking at about 26.6 laps, so it's doable, but you kind of had to already set yourself up for that, and I can tell you, pretty much everybody but the Prismatic drivers, and maybe that last final group of Delano, Ahrensberg, and Timms, those look to be about the only drivers able to do that. Now, it could be up that fourth pack's hands of, you know, maybe lay off the throttle pedal just a little bit, get you to that 27 lap mark, and maybe you would only have to stop twice. But man, if there's a caution at all, that strategy is pretty much thrown out the window.
Here's another factor to throw into it as well. With how small the field is and with how spread out it is, all of these drivers are pressing the gas pedal a lot more than they would if they were in a large group of cars. Now, specifically, Cass Silliman is in a much worse position being the leader of her group as opposed to Emily Howe or Lilac Zier or Judith Cooper. Judith Cooper's probably in the best position, actually, her or Zier, being that they're in kind of the draft and they just need to make sure they stay off of the rear bumper of the car in front of them. So, you know, they will be able to lay off the gas pedal a little bit more, but you have these groups of cars where it's only 2 or 3 cars. I can tell you that every one of them is, you know, going to be near full throttle. And around this place, gas mileage can be hugely affected by how much you are able to spend that stint in a draft. And the fact that most of these drivers are going to be pretty much full throttle all the way around is going to make it so their gas mileage is going to be, you know, pretty much the worst it possibly could be.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not too surprised that some of the prismatic drivers aren't having Silman kind of pull up to the high side there, let one of them through so they can kind of cycle that draft and effectively make sure they're all even in terms of fuel mileage. So, kind of surprised they're not doing that. They're usually the smartest drivers. They work the best as a team. So, I'm not sure if they thought about that yet before, or maybe they're just going to get to that in another couple laps here. We'll have to see if they did think of that or if they're all just going to come down and pit for a full tank of fuel and 4 tires in the next little bit or so. And to be honest, if they all come down and pit at the same time, they're going to be even Stevens in terms of fuel mileage. It's going to be at the last end where it really matters how much fuel you burn through, because that can be the difference between a 5-second pit stop or a 2-second pit stop.
Yeah, and I'm sure these drivers will be thinking about, even if they are wanting to stretch it and only make it a two-stop race, um, I'm sure that they're going to set up a pit stop for like a minimal fuel load and probably no tires, and try to make that stop as quickly as possible, just to make it to the end. Maybe, last 5 laps or so, enough fuel for that, um, and go from there. But you actually see a second lane forming there with Braden Mailing. He is 1 lap down, trying to maybe get his lap back the old-fashioned way or just try to make something happen. You see, though, Harry Wills is trying to go with him, and now Harry is 2 laps down. He is 13th. He's only 1 spot behind Mailing, but he is 2 laps down. So even if he passes Mailing here, he's not in the free pass position because he's not the first driver 1 lap down. So just keep that in mind here as they follow in a train here behind the leaders, and we have a caution on the speedway.
Oh, Matthew Plaisant's hard on the outside wall there. We're going to have to see what brought out the caution for this and what causes. I was just about to say, though, too, Kenny, if Wills pushes Mailing that far out, it could be advantageous for him as well. Oh, wow, that happened even before Plaisant's gotten while he had to spin down the track. Oh, that was a very scary situation there for those 3 drivers.
Yeah, it looks like Plaisant's being drafted by Mark Redford, and Redford just got right on his left rear and hit him in the corner, and probably just hit him too hard. It's not. That's a place where you have to be very careful about drafting. Especially if you're going to hit the driver on the left rear. That's kind of sketchy, and I'm not sure. I don't think Plaisant's had any damage because I think he had a fresh race car after taking his fast repair, but. Just kind of a bump draft gone wrong here, but if we look ahead, if everybody pits under this caution, they'll probably just make one more stop and then be able to make it to the end, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you come down pit road right here, let's just for argument's sake say they're going to come down in this lap or the next one. As you can see, all the prismatic drivers kind of catch up to the pace car very rapidly, and then having to slam on the brakes so they don't get any penalties. Silman's going to actually have to slow down pretty hard to let the pace car by. Even if you say they pit next time by, that's 41. You add 26 onto that. That's only going to be about 60. 26. It's only about lap 67, so you're still going to have to make one more pit stop. So this is basically just going to put you in the window of only needing to make one more stop. So I definitely expect all the drivers to come down pit road right here, get a full tank of fuel, 4 fresh tires, and then that's going to set you up to have to pit about lap 67 or so for the rest of this race.
So I actually saw Dean Timms come down pit road the lap before. I'm not sure if he had to or what, but he might end up getting a penalty from that because he came in a lap early. But here we go. The rest of the lead lap drivers are down pit road here, and they will take a full service, and we'll see the race on pit road. You're looking at the exit here, and looks like that was the 9 car going by a Plaisant, so that is not a lead lap race there. It looked like it was Cass Silman. Yeah. Yep, Cass Silman came out.
You can see the Vulture Motorsports drivers. That's going to be Delano, Aaronsburg, Redford coming out as well. TJ Handley also exiting the pits. And interestingly enough here, Kenny, Judith Cooper mired back in the 10th position for the moment. I'm not sure if they went down pit road, maybe slid through the box just a little bit. So easy to do with these new generation next generation cars. So we'll have to see what affected that pit stop for them. But to be honest, Kenny, I think if you're Dean Timms, it's not that bad. that he came down pit road, especially when it was closed. I mean, the penalty for that is tail end of the longest line. He was already running back there, so this isn't really going to affect him too badly. And this is a replay here. This is Judith Cooper's pit stall.
Yeah, so this is the end of her pit stop, but she did slide through her pit box and was a little bit delayed in realizing that it happened. So she drove in and kind of stopped and sat there waiting for service, and then a few seconds later backed up and was able to get into her pit box properly. But that is why she had that delayed pit stop, and she will drop to, it looks like around 10th place, but no worries for her. She's got a fast car, and she knows how to get back through the field, so shouldn't be a huge deal. And it looks like we will end up with, I believe, 12 cars in the late lap. I think Braden Mailing is going to get the free pass here. So good for him to stay with the lead group there and ensure that he only went the one lap down. So he will be back in the lead lap in 12th. Harry Wills, it looks like Harry Wills is going to take a wave around here, which I don't blame him. With him being 2 laps down, just kind of trying something out and seeing if he can get away with it. And if he has to pit.
Byron McReynolds always says too, Ken, if you have the opportunity to get your lap back, you take that wave around as soon as possible and hope that something else comes out, because you'll be kicking yourself if you don't. Especially if there's a second caution, there is no way you're going to get a wave around if it comes immediately, and sometimes cautions breed cautions.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially a free lap. And really at Talladega too, if he just takes like a fuel-only pit stop, there will be some time before he actually ends up going a lap down under green. Whereas at a smaller track, if you take a wave around and then you're forced to pit under green, you might end up going like 2 laps down based on the time around the track compared to the pit stop. So, this is kind of a potential win-win for Harry if he can get this lap back, maybe get a quick caution. But if not, I mean, it's worth a try.
It's worth a shot, and if you wind up worse off for it, you're still going to kick yourself for it, but at least you took the chance to get the wave around. There is only one way you're going to get one of your laps back. You're doing it right here. This is just what you got to do. Back to the race, though. Currently under our first caution, lights obviously out atop the iRacing pace car, so we're going to go back to green, this time by Emily Howe sat on the pole. Cass Silliman, your current leader, she started all the way back in 8th position. Lilac Zier started on the outside pole, so you can see some of those drivers who started up front still out front. Even Eric Kolaga, he qualified in 3rd. He's currently running in 4th, so definitely not a whole lot of movement in some of the fast cars. Obviously, you got a fast car in qualifying. You're going to have a fast car for the race, especially at these plate tracks.
Yeah, and going back to Harry Wills real quick, if he does have to pit, if he does go laps down, he is 3 laps at the moment ahead of Matthew Plaisance, who's the next driver, any laps down. So he would still be in the free pass position for quite some time, unless any other driver has problems and starts going 1 to 2 laps down. But we're beyond halfway now. We kind of split this race in half, essentially, but here we are, ready for the green flag.
Cass Silliman waiting to put her foot on the loud pedal. Looks like she's going to wait and let the iRacing scoring system do it all by itself. Barty the flagman waiting to hold and wave the green flag. He finally waves it. You can see all these drivers start rocketing down into turns 1 and 2. And Kenny, not always advantageous if you're the leader to catch the whole field sleeping when you go to restart this race, because sometimes you can get a lead that's honestly too big for you to handle, because they're going to come at you with a whole head of steam and go to make a move on you as soon as you get down to the backstretch. And that was perfectly timed there by Cass Silliman. Emily Howe able to slot back in line behind her. Lilac Sierra, well, they just kind of lag a little bit behind until Emily was able to come down from the top of the track, and you could see those 3 prismatic teammates now 1, 2, and 3 on the bottom. Stephen Martinez in the 53 Vulture Motorsports machine. He's the 4th driver in line, obviously getting a push right now from his Vulture Motorsports teammate Eric Kulaga. Then behind him it's Justin Delano, Aaronsburg, TJ Handley, Dean Timms, and then Judith Cooper. Kenny, I'm really interested to see how fast Judith can get back up to the field. Well, they're wrecking on the front stretch. Mark Redford goes around into Matthew Plaisance, it looks like, and then Braden Mailing. He just got the lucky dog, too. That is a heartbreak for him.
You'll have to take a look at this one. Oh, it looks like a little bit of net code, but looked like Plaisance kind of drifted up into Redford there and spun Redford around. And we'll see. I want to see. Okay, I wanted to see if Harry Wills was involved because he was going to be the potential free pass there. But man, talk about good luck for Harry Wills. So he takes a wave around, gets a lap back, and then immediately gets a caution, which not only will keep him on that lap, but will actually get him another lap because he was the first car one lap down. So he has gone from 2 laps down to on the lead lap in the span of about 5 laps.
Yeah, that's why you do that. That's why you take the wave around every single chance you can. Looking here at the replay, wow, there was a lot of netcode in there, Kenny. That was the most netcode I've seen in quite a while. It looked like to be about a foot or so.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot. And you know what I've noticed in the last year or so, for whatever reason, netcode has been terrible at super speedway races. I've had some really wacky wrecks that probably shouldn't have either happened or shouldn't have been as bad as they were because of netcode happening. But it's a part of it. It's kind of something that we racers all just kind of deal with. But you see, pit road I think is open this time, and nobody is taking.
TJ
Nobody's.
Handley thinking about it,
Yeah,
and honestly, I
he
think
went.
if you're in 5th place, maybe 7th on back for sure, why not come down pit road, get yourself a little bit more extra fuel?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't. I mean, as long as you don't get like bottled up behind somebody who's really slow, that's on the lead lap, that would you know, really hurt your progress on the start and make you lose the draft. That'd be my only concern. But if you can tail onto the back of the pack and kind of stay there, you might as well pit. I mean, heck, you might as well take tires too. I mean, you get unlimited sets of tires in this league, so might as well come down for service and come back out. I mean, you won't be hurt.
Yeah, definitely. You can see Harry Wills getting the lucky dog that time by. So huge break for him. And because he gets the lucky dog, he can just come back down pit road this time by, get the fresh tank of fuel, the 4 fresh tires, and he's going to be set rocking and rolling just like all these drivers on the lead lap now. So that could just be the entire move of the race. That was a fantastic move on his part. Definitely the if there were an Allstate, you're in good hands, move of the race, that would be the one for me.
Yeah, for sure. And now what we will have, well, we'll be still at 12 cars on the lead lap because it looks like Redford has gone a lap down while in the pits trying to do some repairs. So he's in 13th at the moment. And I wonder, did Redford already take a fast repair earlier and that's why he's repairing now? Or did he maybe forget to check his fast repair on when he came down pit road?
I'm not sure. I know he was one of the earlier drivers to come down on pit road. Obviously, it was an unscheduled stop, so I have to believe he needed his fast repair to be used right then. So I think any more of this wreck is really just kind of taking him out of competition.
Yeah, and Matthew Plaisance is still out on the field. He is 4 laps down in 14th, the last driver on the racetrack, soldiering on. But we're getting to the point now where, well, we're going to have 35 laps to go as we cross the line here. So it's still a one-stopper, but what do you think? Do you think these drivers will run their fuel out as far as they can go, or will they split it in half? Because tires aren't going to matter. It's all just going to come down to, when you decide to get fuel.
Kenny, I think you run the tank out. Obviously, between us, when we do the NIS races, I'm the crew chief. If I were crew chiefing you right now, I would say, look, bud, we've done about 4 extra laps here under caution, 2 compared to the last caution we had after we exited the pits. I said we were good to be about lap 67. Every 2 laps under caution is worth another one under green flag. I think we can go to lap 70. I'm going to tell you run the tank out because I'm going to bet. If I were a betting man, a gambling man, I would say we're probably going to get another caution before lap 70. It's going to allow us to come back down pit road. And as soon as you cross over that lap 54 mark, you're pretty much good to go until the end of the race. You might have some green, white checkers mixed in there, but I would practically say after about, lap 60, you pretty much have enough fuel to finish off the race no matter what.
Yeah, and Harry Will's got a free pass, and he has come down pit road to get a full service, so he will come back out and try to catch up to the field. He's just now crossing the start-finish line, so hopefully for him he is able to catch up to the field before they take the green. I think he'll be able to, but we'll keep an eye on that. But yeah, he's back into this, and he was one of the most aggressive drivers out there, so it'll be interesting to see his progress coming back on through the field. Remember, him and Eric Kulaga seemed to work really well together early on in the race, kind of getting up towards the front, and Kulaga's kind of wondering, where's my help right now? He's in 5th place. He does have his Vulture Motorsports teammate right next to him, Steven Martinez, and those guys have been relatively quiet. The Chevrolets have been pretty quiet today, but they've been up in front a little bit. But I watch Steven Martinez every week, and he seems pretty smart behind the wheel, kind of picks and chooses his battles, and I think maybe he's just kind of waiting for things to open up for him later on.
Oh, definitely. Everything I've seen out of Steven Martinez, even on the roadside, is he's pretty calculative. Much like you, he kind of waits for those higher percentage moves and waits to pounce on those instead of just trying to bust down every single door in front of him. Regardless, so the iRacing pace car pulls down pit road, gives command of the field back over to Cass Silliman as they head through the tri-oval, right past where the start-finish line would be if we were at Daytona. Barney the flagman waves the green flag in the air. All these drivers, again, once more put their foot on the lob pedal. This time by, though, Emily Howe looking to be side by side with teammate Cass Silliman there down on the inside. She's getting a huge push, in fact, from Steven Martinez on the high side, looking to take back over the lead. She's going to drop down in front of her teammate. That's Emily Howe, and then Cass Silliman, then Lilacs here. We're going to have to see what the Vulture Motorsports drivers can do on the high side if they get linked up and choose to pursue that. Right now, Steven Martinez, Eric Kulaga, just barely going to slot back down in front of Justin Delano in that 38 Chevrolet.
Yeah, it looks like most of these drivers really fighting for the bottom. Do see 3 drivers trying to make the top side work, and a huge push came from Harry Wills, which went into a TJ Hanley, and he in turn gave a good push to Dean Timms. Those are the 3 drivers up top. I'll be watching out for them to see if they can make any progress up through the field, and they're really trying this top line out. And I think Wills is the type of driver that really wants to just kind of sit and control this race, so we'll have to see if he can make that top side work. But right now, still the Prismatic drivers out front, 3 of them anyway. Zier in 3rd, Silliman in 2nd, Howe in 1st. And we were kind of keeping an eye on Judith Cooper. She's kind of marred back in the traffic right now. Last time by, she was 11th place, so just kind of sitting back there right now.
Yeah, just kind of sitting back there, biding her time, not really trying to make too aggressive moves. You can see those 2 orange and black cars in the middle of the field. They're kind of dodging and weaving a little bit. You see TJ Handley in the Napa car in the high line. He's that blue machine tucked between the 2 British drivers of Dean Timms and Harry Wills. So we'll see what TJ can do on the high side. Interesting of note, too, the Vulture Motorsport drivers have dropped a bit off the back end here of the Prismatic drivers. So I don't know if they're trying to look to make a big run here on the outside. You can see now that's Dean Timms. TJ Handley looking down to the inside. We're going to see what Dean Timms does with this huge run he's going to get here. We'll now see if TJ Handley can do anything. He's going to get a huge boost to speed. Lilac Zier now goes to the outside. I don't know if she's looking to block off any kind of run on the high side. That is what you do in these races, though.
For certain, and Hanley is about as aggressive as I've seen him in this race. And it looks like, Will's going to shoot through the middle. Yeah, Will's shooting through the middle there on Hanley, and it looks like he's going to make it work, but I'm not sure he's going to make this pass. And it looks like other drivers coming in to help on the high side. You got Kulaga trying to help Zier on the top side, and then you got Hanley on the bottom. And there you go, Wills is able to hook up with his teammate in Dean Timms there, and we're going to be 3 abreast, 3 rows deep or so in 1 and 2. As the top 3 drivers try to scamper away, Zier, Silliman, and Emily Howe.
I was going to say the most important thing that they did down the back straightaway that last time was kind of split up those three prismatic drivers, but unfortunately for them, Lilac Sear able to now link back up with her two prismatic teammates. Now it's Eric Kulaga on the low side. He's going to get a huge push here from Dean Timms and Harry Wills on the low side. Look at Brandon Mailing. He was just put back on the lead lap by that lucky dog a couple laps ago. Now he's up there fighting for the lead with these drivers.
And Matthew Plaisance has officially disconnected from the race, so he will be out and will finish 14th out of 16 drivers. Also, Mark Redford's still in the pits, 6 laps down, but has not exited the server yet. He's in 13th place. Yeah, a lot of change for position at the moment, and you know, these drivers don't seem to be really satisfied with running in one particular line or staying behind one particular car for any real amount of time, as they just really continuously want to go at it. And now the front end of the pack is completely different than it was. We got Kulaga, Timms, Wills, and Martinez, and Delano has popped in the top 5 for, I think, the first time today.
Yep, definitely agree with you there, Kenny. So these drivers all over the track fighting for the lead. Interesting of note, too, the 4 prismatic drivers are now linked back up. I don't know if the top 3 ones went back in the pack to pick up their teammate Judith Cooper. She was mired back there for the longest time after that last pit stop where they all came down on pit road. She, in fact, had lost a position since coming off pit road in 10th, running in 11th place right there. So we're going to have to see what those 4 drivers can do. They've cleared the 3rd pack now. Now they are the 2nd pack, currently hunting down the lead pack, so it's going to be the best of which 4 cars are the fastest.
Yeah, I mean, I've been really impressed with how fast Kulaga, Timms, Wills, and Martinez have been since they got out front. I mean, they've just been really pushing hard, and it's almost an uncomfortable state of pushing. I mean, you see Kulaga kind of weaving back and forth as he's getting hit from behind by Dean Timms. You see Timms actually going to the top, though, and it looks like his teammate's not going to go with him. Don't know if he's just kind of letting these guys by, and maybe that's actually a strategic move, trying to let Wills go on by because of the fact that he's been such an aggressive pusher. Let him be in 2nd, because really that 2nd place car is pretty much the most important driver in any particular group, because he is the pusher. He's going to determine how aggressive that he wants to do that, and you know, from then on, the driver up front just needs to hold on, and the drivers behind just need to kind of stay in line.
The 2nd pack has now caught the 1st pack. Obviously, they had the additive of draft being used, so now we're going to see if any of the drivers on the low side go to block those ones on the high side. Going to be very interesting here as they finally draw closer and closer to taking over the lead from Eric Kulaga in his Vulture Motorsports Chevrolet Camaro. Obviously, once they got to the high side, they kind of stalled out just a little bit because they don't have the help. They no longer have the addition of the draft behind them. TJ Handley and Justin Delano now catching these 2 blind. TJ Handley says, I'd like to form a 3rd line, and Justin Delano picks the low line. He's going to help out that low side right now. Finally, though, Emily Howe finally noses her nose ahead of Eric Kulaga. She takes the lead back from him as they head down the back straightaway. Now into turns number 3 and 4. That's Kulaga in the lead. They're neck and neck, nose to nose as they head down the front straightaway. Momentum transitions to the high side. You're going to see a huge push here from the front end to Harry Wills on the rear end to Eric Kulaga as they come out of the tri-oval here. Momentum still on the high side. The first 2 prismatic cars now clear. Lilac Sear looking to add her name to that list. Judith Cooper a little bit more reserved.
And this is a 10-car group here with the only drivers not being in the lead draft. Jason Ahrensberg in 11th, Braden Mailing in 12th. Both cars on the lead lap. And all the drivers off the lead lap are out of the race, or essentially in the pits. So, looking back forward, though, yeah, you see these drivers. Oh, there's contact. Hanley's around. He's in the fence. Are these drivers going to keep it straight?
Kulaga is too. Oh, he hits Justin Delano as well.
He's off the racing line, though. So, Kulaga's down off the track. He's back on the track. No caution.
Facing
We
the
will
wrong
stay
direction,
green.
but yeah, the leaders aren't there, so there isn't going to be a caution. Now look at how handily the 4 Prismatic teammates have gotten through that entire thing. Now running 1, 2, 3, 4. Once again, 25 laps to go. If they pit from now on, and there are no green flag checkered events, the race can be finished on just this one more tank of fuel.
Wow. And there was a lot of netcode going on there too, and looked like what happened was Kulaga had a monster run after being pushed by Harry Wills, and dropped, or he caught up to the lead group and really had to check up. He actually tried to go up a groove to avoid smashing into those drivers up in front, and actually netcoded himself into Hanley at that moment. So unfortunate for all of those drivers, and like you said, Austin has really put a stranglehold on this race for the Prismatic drivers, and they are catching up to, looks like Mark Redford has come back out onto the racetrack damaged, but I appreciate him trying to finish this thing in 13th. He'll go another lap down, and then Delano, who's coming out of the pits with, I assume, a fast repair, he will go a lap down soon as well, and then up ahead of them is Kulaga, who's still on the apron in turn 3. Either some more damage that's terminal, or maybe a pit road penalty. We'll have to see, but he'll go laps down. TJ Hanley in the pits as well, so a lot of good race cars being put possibly down and out here.
Yeah, for sure. You saw Eric Kulaga down on the apron there. He's going to look to go into the pits this time by Mark Redford. You can see the hesitation in him as he tried to go up to that middle line, just one up above that double yellow to see if he could latch onto this pack and try and help himself stay only 12 laps down. Wasn't quite enough to be able to do that, though. For right now, Justin Delano in the lucky dog spot. Aaronsburg and Mailing, though, they're linked up with each other, but I think they're going to get lapped if we keep going green here for about the next 20 or so laps, but it is going to be a while before they're caught.
Yeah, and right now it's just that top 4 all by themselves here, and Delano's lap down, and a big gap, over 3 seconds back to Steven Martinez. So, yeah, I'm not so sure. We'll have to keep monitoring the lap times, but I'm not so sure they'll be able to catch up. But remember, we do have that one pit stop yet to come, so that could change some things. We'll have to see. Yeah, they lost about, Martinez lost about 3/10 just that last lap to the leaders. So yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that. I think that's maybe their last hope, is either, you know, some poor strategy by the leaders or possible caution. Other than that, I think, you know, these Prismatic drivers are really controlling this one, and looks like Kulaga is going to be going a lap down here. I did see a ping from Lilac Zero that she's pitting in this time by, so I think these drivers up front might be trying to make their pit stop right here. We'll have to see.
Yeah, this time by, wouldn't be too surprised if they pit. Obviously, they know the same kind of thing as we do based on fuel. They are all 4 of them going to pit this time by. It looks like some other drivers, yeah, Dean Timms, Harry Wills looking to pit this time by as well. So they're looking to see if they can't perhaps latch onto the back of this Prismatic Motorsports field. All these drivers now coming down pit road. And Kenny, I think at this point you're going to take the 4 fresh tires and fuel, just fill up the tank.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 20-lap split from here on out, so I think that it's, you know, pretty much, or it's close to full tank anyway. So look like I don't think I saw tires though. Yeah, those were definitely fuel only stops, and I don't know if that was even full tanks. A lot of 7 and 8 second stops right there. So I'll have to keep an eye on that. It looks like Steven Martinez has stayed out along with Jason Aaronsburg and Braden Mailing, and I like this play. I think if you're any of these drivers, I think you're kind of gonna, oh, looks like Martinez is going to pit, and he's by himself right now, so he's not going to have any drafting help. I kind of would have liked the play of staying out as long as you can. You know you're not going to catch the leaders based on pit strategy, so just kind of stay out and see if you can maybe catch a caution. It's maybe their only breath of hope.
I think you're right. I think if you're one of these guys right now, you definitely kind of have to hope that something plays your way in terms of just absolute sheer luck or some sort of strategy. Of note as well, though, looking at the Prismatic Motorsports drivers, Silliman is in the lead, then Hal, and then it's Lilac here. Judith Cooper still a little bit of a ways behind them to the tune of about 2 seconds at the moment. Then you got Harry Wills and Dean Timms. Timms, though, is another 2 seconds back behind Wills, so you can see some split strategies and times in terms of all the drivers getting off pit road.
It is at least nice to see Ahrensburg getting a chance to lead some laps out front here, less than 20 laps to go, and at least he does have a little bit of help. He's not going, completely single car slow. He does have Braden Mailing in behind him at the moment, and looks like Silliman has cycled back to be the provisional leader. She's third place at the moment with Howe Zier right behind, and a little bit of a gap back to Judith Cooper, who's being pushed by Harry Wills, and they're just kind of in a pair. So if they can get back up to the lead group, might be a little bit of racing to go on, but at the moment that group of 4 has dropped to a group of 3 out front.
Ahrensburg, Mailing still 1 and 2. Kenny, I'm really interested to see when these drivers finally do decide to pit. Do they kind of realize the caution isn't going to come their way and they'll have to pit about 10 laps before the end of the race, or do they just kind of bite the pill and bite the bullet in terms of coming down pit road as soon as they might need to?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how exactly how long they're able to stretch this one out, and maybe try to really, short pit short pit meaning have a short pit stop, and see where they cycle out. But I am sure they're losing quite a bit of time every single lap. It looks like Ahrensburg last time by ran a 52.1. That's what he's been running. And last time by Silliman ran a 51.9. So yeah, I mean, they're definitely losing some time lap by lap, but who knows? I mean, if you can make it up by having a really short pit stop, that might help. But again, Silliman and company, they only had 8-second pit stops, so it's not like they were in pits for that long.
Definitely. No, quick pit stops from this point on, as we kind of mentioned, the laps are going to need to go through before the end of the race, definitely quite a bit shorter, and especially with all the caution laps we run. We're going to have to see, though, just how this plays out. Interesting to see, too, of note that the leaders kind of in their own little packs. You got Silliman, Howe, Zier, and then 1 second behind them is Cooper, Wills, and Dean Timms has actually lost a lot more time than just the 2 seconds that there were the last time we talked about that gap. Then you've got Steven Martinez. He's an additional 6 seconds behind them.
Yeah, and you saw Justin Delano go a lap down, and he's filed in behind these drivers. He's actually going to go underneath of Mailing and hook up with his teammate here, and this will at least help, for the last few laps if these drivers can improve their lap time just that little bit. I mean, any little bit will help. So having 3 drivers will definitely be beneficial. They're catching up to Eric Kulaga, who we'll see if he will latch on to these drivers. We're approaching 15 laps to go next time by, though. So getting to the point where they can almost just put half a tank of fuel in these things and make it to the end.
Yeah, closer and closer to counting that bind. Interesting to see, too, that all the Prismatic drivers came down pit road and they got fuel only when they came down. They did not get tires. And it's also interesting to see, too, Kenny, Ahrensburg and Mailing, they've been pulling out a gap over the rest of the drivers. It was 22 seconds a couple laps ago, then 23, 24. Now it's at 25. I feel like these drivers having lighter fuel load, allowing their cars to go just a little bit faster. So I'll be really interested to see if they can kind of stretch the fuel load to the very end, come down pit road in the last possible second, and then come out better because of it. I think these drivers, I don't know why they're all going to the high side. If this is to pass a lap down car to the inside, I don't know, maybe select Kulaga through, maybe they get some sort of draft off of him. Oh, that's why. Steven Martinez.
Yeah, Martinez is up there, and we'll see if we'll see what kind of pace that these drivers will have if they can actually hook up. But again, Ahrensburg's got to be getting close to having a pit here, and I'd say maybe the next 5 laps or so. So him and Delano go by, and now Mailing's caught up, and Martinez trying to catch up here. These drivers aren't really doing a great job of being real organized on the bottom, and that's going to continue to hurt their lap times.
Yeah, if you want to make the bottom work like the way they are, you pretty much got to be linked up the entire time. And if you're not linked up, you definitely kind of have to be still circling through. You know, one driver gets the draft, goes all the way up to the front, and then he goes to the back of the pack, and they just kind of keep circling to keep that momentum up. So you're not always having to just push one car again and again and again.
Yeah, the only downside with is here we go. We have pit stops happening here with was that I lost track of him just for a second there. Ahrensberg coming into the pits. By himself, though. His teammate did not come with him. However, his teammate is Delano, who is a lap down, so he's not on the same strategy, so that explains that. But that's going to give the lead to Braden Mailing, at least for one lap, so good to see him out front. Whoa, a little bit loose there off of turn 2, and these other Chevrolets going to go around him down the back stretch. And Ahrensberg is out of his pit box. He took a 12-second pit stop, so that tells me that was a full fuel load that he just took on board. So he's definitely going to find himself well behind the Prismatic drivers who have long passed him, and they're coming out of turn 2 at the moment. And Ahrensberg is just now, he's not even off the apron yet on pit exit.
Yeah, it's going to be weird to see what he can do here. Very interesting indeed. Obviously, you know, once this cycles through, you got the Prismatic drivers. They are catching Mailing at the moment repeatedly. You can see the ticker on the left-hand side of your screen. The intervals keep reducing from Mailing back to the 4 Prismatic machines. Then it's interesting to see, too, you still got Harry Wills. He could still spoil this for them, but without a teammate there to help him, obviously Dean Timms quite a bit further back in the field to the tune of about 8 or so seconds at this point. You can see the timing and scoring now change to lap times there. So the distance between Wills to Timms is about 22 seconds, so definitely not getting any help from that teammate there.
No, and here comes Mailing down into pit lane. He will be the last driver kind of in this cycle to make his pit stop, and nice job getting down into pit entry, but he's all by his lonesome here as he will come down. We'll see if he takes a short fuel stop here with looks like it'll be 11 laps to go when he comes out of pit lane. We're looking back now at the who will be the leaders as they cross the start-finish line this time by. And it'll be Silliman, Howe, Zier, and Cooper in that order. Mailing is coming out of pit lane now. He did take a short fuel load, only 6.83 seconds, but you saw the leaders have long left him in the dust at this point. So Mailing will come out, and he'll still be on the lead lap and everything. We'll plan on getting a solid top 10 finish, but chances at a win are pretty much naught at this point unless a caution comes out. And I don't know when it happened, but it looks like somehow Judith Cooper got around Harry Wills and got up to her teammates and left Wills in the dust as well. And Wills is just kind of all by himself.
Wills is dropping like a rock right now. He continues to fall back further and further. So interesting to see. Yeah, Kenny, I'm kind of surprised he would have done that. It looks like he has some damage on the front end of that car. So obviously his speed low in the pack. Yeah, look at the ripums he's pulling down the front stretch here. Obviously getting out of the way to let the leaders come by. So very weird indeed.
Yeah, he's kind of running a high line right now as well. So I'm not sure. He might lose some spots before the end of this one. But now I want to bring up another conversation here. That 10 laps to go. You have 4 teammates out in front. How badly does any of these particular cars want to win this race? How hard do you think they will race each other when we get down to it? They have 10 seconds back plus to the next driver. So what do they do here, I wonder?
If it were me, I would say, look, you know, we cross the white flag. It's every driver for themselves. You want to win the race, you come up here and you take it. Obviously, you know, you can play the team game to say, well, Cass, you've led pretty much the entire race. Of course, Emily won the pole. So she had the fastest one lap pace. She started up front, but she hasn't stayed up front. For the most part, it's been Cass Silliman in the lead of this race. So either they kind of say we're going to stay in order and it'll be a prismatic 1, 2, 3, 4, or you'll let them fight it out. Maybe it still is a 1, 2, 3, 4, or maybe one of you wrecks. It's really hard to say. I would be hard pressed to want to be in the Prismatic Motorsports camp and have to decide or talk about this amongst yourselves, because it's going to be very weird to say, well, you've been leading the whole time, you just take the win, or to say, obviously every race car driver is selfish, to say, I think we should all fight it out with the 1 lap to go. I can tell you which side I'd be on as a viewer and a broadcaster.
Yeah, for sure. And you and I have raced against each other in plenty of races, and we've kind of said the same thing where, I'll help you out up until near the end, and then if you want to help me right near the end on the last lap, that's fine. But if not, I totally get it. Totally get the motivation that you want to go out there and win for yourself. So will be interesting, though. I fully expect, though, these drivers to kind of ride for at least the next few laps. Maybe somebody will make a surprise move with just a few laps to go. You do see TJ Hanley there in the background. He is 1 lap down, the first car 1 lap down. So if we do get a caution, he would be in the free pass position in 11th place. There's one other driver 1 lap down. That's Eric Kulaga. He's quite some distance behind the leaders at the moment. But I do wonder too if it could be a kind of almost like a split where since you have 4 drivers, and it'd be much helpful or very helpful if if you have one driver to help you out if you do decide to make a move. I wonder if these drivers may split into kind of a 2v2 situation.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting, almost kind of reminiscent of the tandem driving we had on plate tracks in about 2010 to 2012. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and who goes with who. Is it first and third, or first and second and third and fourth, or first and fourth and second, third together? Obviously, so many permutations, so you can have those. So it'll be interesting to see who goes with who. I think if anything happens, it's going to be Lilac Zier and Judith Cooper. Kind of, they've been lagging back just a little bit. They're going to be able to get that momentum, probably going down the back straightaway, and then they'll get that momentum, go up to the high side. We'll see who goes to block him, and of course, at that point, it's game on.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing you want to make sure you don't do, though, is you can't wreck your teammate. I mean, maybe coming to the line, but even then, that's still that's one thing. Whenever I've been a teammate with somebody, that's what I've tried so hard to do, is to race them clean no matter what. And ideally, if they can at least get to the white flag and not have to worry about accidentally causing any actual cautions, that would help. But really, let's hope all 4 of these drivers have a nice clean race until the finish. We're down to 5 laps to go, so these laps are clicking off relatively quickly, and obviously no other drivers other than these 4 are really in contention for the win at this point. They do have one other lap car that they're heading towards, and it looks like Harry Wills has wrecked in turns 3 and 4.
So it's all going to depend on if he's still on track when the leaders come by. This is a replay of what's happened. This isn't that second pack. Wow, you can see just a whole lot of net code. Give them some opposite lock there. It's so hard to save these cars when you're going about 200 mile an hour into the corner. Not looking like we're going to get a caution flag just yet, though.
And he's actually stayed out on the track. You see them there on the apron as he will go 1 lap down. He's now dropped to 10th, 11th position. He's now outside of the free pass spot if we did get a caution as well. So that's pretty interesting. And I don't remember how much of a points lead he had. It'd be nice if we could actually bring up the points graphic real quick, because he's down in 11th. That's a 10-point split, right, between him and Silliman. As we take a look real quick. Yeah, okay, so Zier's actually in the points lead by 10 coming in this week. So yeah, that would obviously would take Wills out of contention for the championship and may take him out of second place as well.
Yeah, very interesting to see what kind of point swing we are going to have coming through the tri-oval. They're going to get 3 to go this time by, and we're really coming down to the wire here. This is when the paying window opens. This is the final points paying event of the season, so we're going to wrap up the entirety of this series after this event here at Talladega. It's been an extremely exciting series to watch and call. I'm sure all the drivers having a lot of fun throughout the entire season. And how about choosing Talladega as the race to wrap up the whole event?
Yeah, could you imagine if a real Cup race was held at Talladega for the championship final? I mean, it's crazy enough that this track gets a playoff race and all the drama that goes with that, but to bring it all down to the end of the season at Talladega is pretty interesting. I've never been in a league or watched a league that has ended their season at this place, so it's been pretty interesting. But we're coming down to 2 laps to go. Still no moves have been made yet. But we're still keeping an eye on it.
For sure. And Dale Jr., once talking with the current sitting president of NASCAR, asked, why don't we do it at a plate track? To which the president responded, well, what would happen if Ricky Stenhouse Jr. won? To which Dale Jr. said, well, if he's in the final championship 4, doesn't he deserve to? So it kind of makes you question the entirety of the NASCAR playoff and point system. So kind of some food for thought there. But these drivers, 2 to go. At the last time they cross by the start-finish line, they're going to get the white flag, which means this race is over and official no matter what. Unless we get a yellow in the next couple seconds, we're going to have a green-white checkered finish. They go around the trial for the second to last time. Go ahead, Kenny.
Well, I remember this particular league, too, has been based off of consistency, and the most consistent driver all season long has been Lilac Zier in 3rd place right now, doing exactly what she needs to do to retain that points advantage. Steven Martinez had to go down pit lane. I'm not sure if he had enough fuel on board or what have you, but he will drop out of the top 5. Here we go down the backstretch. You do see one driver trying to make a move. It's Judith Cooper. And now a second move being made, this time by Emily Howe, as she goes to the outside into 3 and 4.
Going to the outside. That's Silliman not putting up too much of a fight, but obviously momentum shifting back down to the bottom. Cooper chooses to go with Cass Silliman on the low side. They're going to be neck and neck coming through the tri-oval. Cooper decides to go to the high side, going to give some momentum there to Emily Howe. They're 3 wide as they cross the start-finish line through the tri-oval. It looks like this race goes to Emily Howe.
Yeah, beautifully done. And that's kind of the worrying part about racing in the lead at Talladega, is you're kind of just a sitting duck until whoever wants to make that move. And Silliman tried her best to just kind of, hold her line and defend and side draft the best she could. But Emily Howe, with a perfectly timed maneuver, had a little bit of help, and then came across the start-finish line in 1st place, which is exactly where she started, right from the pole. So a great run to end the season for Emily Howe, and a great job by Lilac Zier, again coming home 4th place. Seemed like she was a top 5 machine all season long and comes home with the championship.
Yeah, definitely a great job on her part. We're going to let the iRacing timing and scoring go through the entire finishing order. Then we're going to read it off for you on air. Real quickly, though, I'd just like to thank our sponsors one last time. They're the ones that make this entire thing possible. The first one, obviously, being SIM3D. They're a UK-based company specializing in high-end bespoke sim racing hardware. You can check them out at sim3d.co.uk. And then the second one being Go for the Gap. It's the brand of Cami Sturch. She's a young British artist who specializes in creating awesome, incredible motorsport-themed prints on our Etsy page. Highly recommend you go check those out. Buy something, tell her that we sent you. She'll be very happy to make any more business, especially selling what is her hobby. So it's really awesome to support other people in the same kind of hobby and knack for racing.
Certainly is, and you see kind of some artwork being displayed down on the apron between all the prismatic drivers. They're obviously happy they swept the top 4 positions and also had a driver win the championship. So good for them. A good controlling race by that whole group. They just executed everything perfectly. But we're going to look at some results here, Austin.
Yes, sir, Kenny. Emily Howe obviously winning the race started on pole. Judith Cooper finishes in the second position. Cass Silman finishes third. And Lilac Zero rounds out the Prismatic Motorsports sweep of the top four. Dean Timms rounds out the top five. Justin Delano comes home in the sixth position, followed by Braden Mailing, who finishes in seventh. TJ Hanley finishes in eighth, followed by Jason Ahrensberg in ninth. And Eric Kuwaga rounds out the top 10. Kenny.
Harry Wills brings it home in 11th place. Steven Martinez with a late pit stop ends up 12th. Mark Redford in 13th, and then some drivers that did not finish. Matthew Plaisance 14th, Travis Kepler 15th, and John Cooper in 16th.
Thank you, Kenny. What a race. What a season. It's been awesome and extremely interesting to be here and see this league kind of go through the stages of opening up the season in Daytona. Everybody still has a chance at the championship. Everybody's ambitions are fresh.